Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is Landon Mercer. I'm 44, a long-haul trucker based out of Rapid City, South Dakota. Been on the road for over 2 decades. The highway taught me a lot: how to listen to silence, how to trust your gut, and most importantly, how to keep rolling no matter how rough the miles get. I used to think I understood pain. The kind that comes from losing a job or missing another Christmas because you're chasing deadlines across the interstate. But I didn't know betrayal, not truly, until I woke up in a hospital ICU and found out my wife had stolen every dollar I'd ever saved. I met Rachel 12 years ago on the side of I-80. She had a flat tire and no clue how to change it. I stopped to help. That moment turned into coffee, then dates, then marriage. She was smart, confident, the kind of woman who could command a room just by walking into it. I never questioned her loyalty, her love, her intentions. That was my first mistake. The warning signs were subtle at first. She started taking more solo trips, weekends to visit friends, which somehow never included me. Her phone was always turned screen down. Our conversations, once deep and winding, became transactional. But I blamed myself. I was gone most weeks, hauling across state lines, trying to build a nest egg for our retirement. Maybe I was too absent. Too focused on the future to see what was right in front of me. Then, 3 months ago, I felt a tightness in my chest outside of Lincoln, Nebraska. Pulled over at a gas station and called 911. They airlifted me to Sioux Falls. Turned out I'd had a massive cardiac arrest, flatlined twice. When I came to, the nurse said I was lucky. But I didn't feel lucky when I finally checked my phone. One message from Rachel. Just one. It was a screenshot of our joint account. Balance, $0. Beneath it she wrote, "After everything I've done for you, I deserve this. Don't try to find me." And that was it. She took $68,000. Every dollar I'd saved over the years. Emergency funds. Maintenance reserves for my truck. My IRA. All gone. Vanished while I was fighting for my life. I stared at that message until the screen went dark. Then I clicked thumbs up and closed my eyes. When the doctor came in and told me I needed at least 6 weeks of recovery, I nodded. But my thoughts were already 1,000 miles away. I wasn't just dealing with a broken heart. I had a broken trust. A broken home. I couldn't go back there. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I called my cousin Theo. We hadn't talked much in years, but he answered on the second ring like we'd just spoken yesterday. "I need a place to stay. And I need you to keep it quiet." He didn't ask questions. Just gave me his address and told me he'd pick me up. That night I was discharged with a duffel bag and a stent in my chest. The hospital called a cab, but I sat in the back seat gripping my phone like it might bite me. Rachel hadn't sent another message. Not a call. Nothing. Theo's place was small but clean. He worked construction. Early mornings, beer at night, no drama. He looked me up and down as I limped in and said, "She did a number on you, huh?" "She took everything," I said quietly. He didn't ask which part, money or marriage. I think he knew it was both. Over the next week I just existed. Slept. Ate when I could. Took my pills. Every now and then I'd see a photo pop up on Facebook from someone we used to know. Rachel at a wine bar, smiling. Rachel hiking in Arizona. Alone but always glowing. As if she'd shed me like dead skin and never looked back. I was ashamed. Ashamed I hadn't seen it coming. Ashamed I'd worked myself into a heart attack while she siphoned my life dry. Theo gave me space. But on the 10th day he said something I'll never forget. "Landon, you didn't die. But something did. And maybe that's not a bad thing." That night I stared at the ceiling and realized he was right. My old life was over. But that didn't mean I couldn't build a new one. And this time I wouldn't let anyone steal it from me. I don't know what triggered it. Maybe it was the ache in my chest or the silence of Theo's spare room, but something clicked in me that night. I wasn't just going to crawl away from what Rachel did. I was going to expose it. Every lie. Every dollar. By morning I'd made a list. First stop, the bank. Not the small branch where Rachel and I were recognized, but the regional headquarters in downtown Rapid. I needed someone who would take me seriously. I wore a plain hoodie and the expression of a man who'd had everything taken from him, and wanted it back. The fraud investigator they sent in was a woman named Kelsey. She had sharp eyes and a voice that didn't waste time. I told her everything. My hospitalization, Rachel's message, the empty account. She nodded slowly. Technically she had access, Kelsey said. But the fact that the withdrawals occurred while you were medically incapacitated, that could qualify as exploitation. She leaned forward. If you can prove that the majority of the money came from your income, and that she used it for personal purposes during your hospitalization, we can open a fraud file. But it won't be easy. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Nothing worth doing ever is. Over the next few days, I worked with Theo and an old friend from the trucking company to gather documentation. Pay stubs, hospital records, the cardiac report, and even a time-stamped copy of Rachel's message. Kelsey started the investigation and flagged the account for review. Then came the twist I hadn't seen coming. I'd opened a modest investment portfolio a few years back. Mostly index funds and slow-growth bonds. Rachel had never cared about the boring stuff. But something told me to check it. The account was still there. Untouched. My name only. Nearly $42,000. Still growing. And that wasn't all. As I combed through old tax documents and property records, I found something strange. Rachel had refinanced our house just months before my heart attack. But according to the paperwork, my name was no longer on the deed. I stared at the PDF. She hadn't refinanced it. She'd sold it. To a holding company. A shell LLC. My heart pounded, but not from fear. This was strategy. Cold, methodical strategy. She transferred the deed without my knowledge, right before I collapsed in the truck cab. If I hadn't survived, she would have owned everything. Theo came in while I was still staring at the screen. "What the hell is wrong with her?" he asked. I looked up. My hands were steady for the first time in weeks. She didn't just steal from me. She was planning my erasure. That realization rewired something in me. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a storm. Quiet. Gathering. I contacted a lawyer named Morgan Silva. She was a bulldog in a skirt suit, with a specialty in financial abuse and divorce settlements. She reviewed everything I brought: Rachel's message, the bank report, the shell company, my hospital records. Her face went grim. "She thought you were going to die," Morgan said. "This was all designed to trigger after your death. The account wipe. The property transfer. It's cold." "She's colder than you know," I replied. "Good," Morgan said, snapping her briefcase shut. "Then she'll never see it coming." We started the legal process, filing a motion for temporary restraining order over the house, a financial freeze, and a subpoena for the records of the holding company. Turns out Rachel wasn't clever enough to cover her tracks completely. The company's agent of record? A man named Curtis Vale. Rachel's ex. The one she swore she never spoke to anymore. It was almost too much. Almost laughable. Except that it was my life she'd been gambling with. Meanwhile, Theo's girlfriend, a freelance IT whiz, offered to help track Rachel's digital footprint. What she found stunned us both. Travel bookings, hotel stays, even meal delivery history, 2 addresses Rachel was frequently visiting. One in Phoenix. One in Minneapolis. And the last reservation? A one-way ticket. In 2 weeks. She was planning to run. And she thought I was still crawling. So I made my own moves. First, I set up a new trust fund in my name using the untouched investments. Then I filed a change of address form with the post office to reroute any mail tied to me, not to my old home but to Morgan's law firm. Every piece of this was a message. She wouldn't see it yet, but soon enough she'd hear the rumble of everything she built, cracking. And then came the message that sealed her fate. An email from Rachel. Short. Deceptively sweet. "Hey, I heard you're out of the hospital. Hope you're recovering okay. I'd love to talk when you're ready. No pressure." I stared at it. Then deleted it. You don't get to pretend kindness after you tried to bury me. You don't get to claim concern when your fingerprints are all over the crime scene. Because I wasn't dying anymore. I was loading the next chapter. And she was going to be the headline. 3 days after Rachel's email, I filed the motion to begin formal divorce proceedings. Morgan timed it perfectly. She had the paperwork hand-delivered to Rachel's new office address in downtown Sioux Falls. She wasn't at home anymore, that much was clear. Probably shacking up with Curtis or one of the other names we'd quietly tracked across booking confirmations. But she still had a job, a reputation, a mask to maintain. The paperwork wouldn't just hit her like a hammer, it would shatter the illusion she thought she'd built. Theo was sitting across from me at his kitchen table when Morgan called. "She signed for the delivery," Morgan said. Didn't even flinch. That tracks, I thought. Rachel was the kind of woman who could burn your house down and ask you for a lighter afterward. But I knew her. And I knew that somewhere, underneath all the rehearsed calm, her world had started to crumble. Morgan moved quickly, filing a notice of motion for exclusive rights to the house, based on evidence of financial exploitation during medical incapacity. Alongside it, she submitted an affidavit from my doctor, confirming the severity of my cardiac arrest, and a sworn statement from the fraud investigator at the bank. Rachel didn't respond right away. Not to the court, not to the bank, not to the notice from the holding company's subpoena. But I saw her react in other ways. First, she removed her profile picture from Facebook. Then her Instagram went dark. Next, her old friend Trina, who used to post brunch selfies with her every other weekend, suddenly deleted all pictures that included Rachel. Then a week later I got the call from Morgan. She lawyered up. Who? Rachel. She's working with Andrew Lexman. I clenched my jaw. Lexman was a shark. A litigator known for turning messy divorces into bloodbaths. If she'd gone to him, it meant she was scared and hiding something big. I was right. 2 days later, Morgan called again. Her voice was calm, but there was a dark grin behind every word. She filed a response. Claims you abandoned the marriage. That you were emotionally unavailable. That you may have been unfaithful on the road. I barked a laugh. Unfaithful? I barely had time to sleep between deliveries. She's grasping, Morgan said. And it gets better. She lowered her voice. She's petitioning for spousal support. I blinked. She stole my life savings. Lied about the house. And now she wants alimony? Exactly. Which is why I sent a motion this morning to freeze all her known assets. Even the hidden account? That one too. Because, thanks to my cousin Theo's girlfriend and Morgan's team, we'd uncovered a third account, this one under an alias, R. Vale. Small deposits, yes. But more importantly, they showed a pattern. A paper trail. It linked back to Curtis's business. We now had the digital threads to tie him into Rachel's escape plan. At the same time, I filed for a no-contact order, not because I was afraid of Rachel showing up, but because I wanted to box her in. Force her communication through lawyers. No more manipulative emails. No more soft lie apologies. No more fake concern. That night I drove past our old house. My house, legally. It still looked the same from the outside. Porch light glowing. Curtains drawn. But something felt smaller. Not because I missed it, but because it wasn't mine anymore. Not in spirit. The home I remembered, the one with laughter in the kitchen and warm lights on late nights, that was gone. Rachel had gutted it just like she gutted our life. And now I was going to take back every piece she thought she could keep. The next day Morgan sent me one last file. A subpoenaed email thread between Rachel and Curtis. In it she wrote, "Once the divorce is finalized, we'll be free. You won't know what hit him. I made sure everything looks legal. The house, the withdrawals, all of it. And if he fights back, we have leverage." Leverage. That word kept me up all night. What leverage? What was she hiding? The next morning Morgan texted, "Meet me at the courthouse. We've got a hearing." About the house? I asked. "No," she replied. About the assets. And something new just came in. By the time I arrived, Morgan's smirk told me everything I needed to know. "We just uncovered her biggest mistake yet," she said, handing me a printed page. At the top, a forged signature. What? On a quitclaim deed, transferring the house to the holding company. Dated 2 days after I flatlined in the hospital. She hadn't just tried to erase me. She tried to write me out of existence. I stared at the forged document, every nerve in my body going still. Was my signature. Or close enough to fool most people. But not Morgan. Not me. And definitely not the court, once they saw what we were about to show them. "She filed this with the county clerk's office," Morgan said. 2 days after your cardiac arrest. She claimed you signed it before your hospital stay, and the notary she used? Fake. You're telling me she faked a legal transfer while I was on life support? Yes. And that, Mr. Mercer, is felony fraud. The room seemed to shift around me. All this time I thought Rachel had just been selfish, cruel. But this wasn't about resentment or emotional distance. This was calculated. Criminal. Morgan's eyes burned with a kind of professional joy I hadn't seen before. This is the leverage we didn't know we had. That afternoon, we filed an emergency motion to present the fraudulent deed to the court. Along with affidavits from the hospital verifying my incapacitation at the time of the alleged signing, and a forensic handwriting analyst who reviewed my actual signatures against the one on the document. The analyst's conclusion? The signature was copied and traced with minor but identifiable variations, including inconsistent pen pressure and hesitation marks. It was likely forged. It was game over. Or so I thought. Rachel showed up to court the next day wearing a white blouse and crocodile tears. Her attorney, Lexman, tried to control the narrative. "Your Honor, My client was under significant emotional stress during her husband's hospitalization. There was confusion over documentation and Judge Mandel held up a hand. Stop. Just stop. Are you seriously suggesting that your client mistakenly filed a deed transfer using a notary who doesn't exist and a signature from a man who was clinically dead at the time? Silence. I find this not just deceitful but dangerous. This isn't a clerical error. This is calculated fraud. Rachel looked like she wanted to shrink into her chair. Lexman whispered something urgently in her ear, but the judge wasn't finished. Mr. Mercer, he turned to me, you've been remarkably composed through all of this. I've reviewed the medical records, the financial documents, and now this forged deed. He took off his glasses. I'm freezing all remaining marital assets effective immediately. I'm awarding you exclusive and permanent rights to the home, and I'm referring this forged document to the district attorney's office for investigation. Rachel gasped audibly. I didn't know he was still alive, she stammered. I didn't mean. The judge banged his gavel. Save it for the criminal hearing. Afterward, as Rachel and Lexman scurried down the courthouse hallway, I followed Morgan to her office where she poured us each a glass of cheap scotch. To the long road, she said. To the hard way, I replied, my voice quieter than I expected. But the day wasn't done yet. That evening, Theo's girlfriend texted me something she hadn't wanted to share before without solid proof. She'd cracked into a deleted folder on Rachel's old shared cloud drive. Inside, a series of messages between Rachel and Curtis Vale. Plans to move to Arizona. Lists of which assets they'd take. Even photos, Rachel in lingerie, Curtis holding a bottle of champagne, sitting in my living room. On my couch. But the real bombshell? Curtis had taken out a life insurance policy. On me. Using a small business loophole, fraudulent but common among scammers. The policy listed Rachel as the sole beneficiary. I sent the documents to Morgan. Within 24 hours, she sent them straight to the DA's office with a formal complaint. We didn't even need to push. The case was a bomb waiting to go off. A week later, Rachel was arrested. 1 count of financial exploitation. 1 count of forgery. 1 count of conspiracy to commit fraud. They couldn't pin the life insurance policy to a murder plot. Yet. But it was enough. Curtis? Gone. Vanished. Pulled his money and left the state. There's still a warrant out for his arrest last I checked. Me. I stood outside the courthouse that day watching the cruiser pull away with Rachel inside. Her eyes met mine through the backseat window. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared like she'd never seen me before. And maybe she hadn't. Because the man she thought she left to die? He wasn't dead. He was reborn with eyes wide open. Rachel's trial didn't take long. With the forged signature, the fake notary, the bank statements, and the cloud drive files, the prosecution didn't need a smoking gun. They had a bonfire. She took a plea deal. 3 years probation, 1 year house arrest, and a permanent fraud charge on her record. No jail time, but no future either. The judge stripped her of any claim to my assets. No alimony. No settlement. She even had to reimburse my legal fees, paid from what remained in the hidden account. Ironically, the very stash she created to escape me. As for Curtis Vale? Still gone. Last ping from his phone was somewhere in Tijuana. The authorities haven't found him yet. But karma? Karma never loses track. I moved back into the house, not because I missed it but because I earned it. I bought it, maintained it, almost died for it, and for a while it felt like a hollow trophy. Until I made one change. I burned the couch. That hideous suede thing where Curtis had toasted with my wife, grinning like a man who thought he'd won. I set it ablaze in a fire pit out back. Sparks flew into the dark sky like the last ashes of a life I no longer lived. Theo came by with a six-pack watching me in silence. You done? He asked. I nodded. With all of it. 3 months later I sold the house. Took the profits and bought a small lakeside cabin 2 hours west. Quiet. Peaceful. No ghosts. I started working dispatch for my old trucking company. I don't haul anymore, doctor's orders. But I still love the rhythm of the road even from the other side of the radio. And I started writing again. Journaling. Letters. Stories. Like this one. Because some betrayals cut so deep they need to be told. Not for revenge. Not even for closure. But for warning. Rachel didn't just steal money. She tried to erase me. Quietly. Painlessly. She thought she could take everything, rewrite the ending, and I'd vanish. But I didn't. I fought. I healed. I exposed every lie. And in doing so, I found something I never knew I'd lost. Myself. Last week, I took a walk along the lake near my cabin. Ducks bobbing on the surface. A breeze in the pines. The kind of quiet that doesn't ache anymore. I passed a couple sitting on a bench, laughing, fingers intertwined. For a second, my chest tensed, remembering everything I'd once believed about love, trust, loyalty. But then I exhaled. Not all endings are tragedies. Sometimes they're just corrections. A way to set the record straight. Rachel taught me that. By showing me exactly who not to become. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.